Hello everyone, and welcome back to Abundantly Minimal. My name is Sarah, and today we've got a little bit of a different setup since we have a holiday-inspired video. This thought was a fun background for us today. That being said, today I want to talk a little bit about holiday traditions and making sure that the holiday traditions we are choosing to participate in or practice are intentional, because sometimes it doesn't seem like they actually are when we really stop and think about it. Now, of course, as I film this video, if you're deciding, if this is the right video for you to watch, I would say if you find yourself feeling stressed during the holiday season, if you find yourself busier than you would like during the holiday season, if you don't have as much money to do all these things as you wish, or it's maybe putting a strain on your financial goals during the holiday season, or any combination of those, I think this is probably a good video for you. If you've got plenty of money and you've got so much time, you're not stressed at all, then you're probably doing an okay job with your intentionality of the holidays. So maybe this is not the right video for you. To get started here, my goal for this video is that you're able to have a couple key questions to ask yourself when thinking and reflecting about the holidays that you celebrate and how you're choosing to follow certain traditions or participate in certain activities, and making sure everything is intentional. Because I have a few holiday pet peeves, if you will, that maybe are present in your life and I feel like could be something that could be improved in the case for many people. I think one of these pet peeves is when people are just blindly following all of these perceived expectations in life. A lot of that set up actually to increase people's spending. Commercials or holiday movies set a certain expectation, and people feel like they need to, act that out or to purchase items in their own lives to make, a festive holiday or to feel like they, fit in and belong and create that kind of moment. But, that's not necessarily the case. A lot of times there's a commercial reason or a financial reason why these different things are set up that way to make us feel like we need to participate. So I know that's pet peeve number one. I would say pet peeve number two of mine is that when there is a culture of expectations or people have this goal or this ideal that they need to have all these magic moments, it really creates an opportunity for you to feel let down. Whenever we go into something with expectations that are far too high, it's very possible our expectations won't be met and then we're feeling disappointed. If you've ever felt a bit let down at some point during a holiday gathering or some sort of activity, this might be the case. Maybe you went in with really high expectations, but it just wasn't realistic that those were going to be met. And again, the commercials and movies and the commercialization of different holidays really does make this situation worse, I think, because we have a picture in our mind of what we think is going to happen, but in reality, life is imperfect and not a Christmas movie or, whatever the case is, and it's not going to be that way. So it's important to temper those expectations beforehand. And my third pet peeve is that timing and pacing of different things can be very stressful and add way more stress than there needs to be, especially when there's so many events packed in a very narrow block of time, which for many, like I think I mentioned at the start here, December, when I'm filming this, can be a very hectic time for a lot of people. It doesn't have to be. It's not for me, but for a lot of people, they experience that. And when we put too many events and other activities in such a tight window, we're going to get burned out. We're not going to be able to enjoy everything as much. We might be wasting a lot of time and money and energy, and you're exhausted. You're not able to feel rested and recharged in that experience. Those are just a few of my pet peeves or ways I feel like traditions sometimes can be hijacked by consumerism and things that lead us to be feeling stressed out or disappointed or some of those other factors. So how do we fix it? How do we overcome some of these negative situations and really have the most intentional holiday season, or whenever time of year that this is applicable to you? When do we do that? What can we do to help fix that? There's a few things. The most important step here, and you'll notice that this tip is relevant in a lot of my decluttering videos, first step here is to really audit the situation. What are you currently doing? What are your current traditions? What are the habits that you've done, commitments you've been involved with in the past? Really reflect about these things. Try to list them all out, the different things that are going on. And I want you to reflect about how meaningful they are to you. What are your favorite parts? If you have a family, maybe you talk to them and ask about the favorite parts. I think something that's often interesting is that for certain people, we might have an expectation that, oh, this must be their favorite part of this holiday, or I'm, putting so much work into this aspect to make it magical, and someone else might say, oh, that doesn't matter to me at all. This is actually the magic moment I love, or my favorite part. So it's really important here to, with your family or for yourself, reflect about your favorite parts. What brings the most joy? Likewise, what are the things that you've been doing for a long time that honestly you're dreading, or that you really don't like participating in? You're very excited when it's over and maybe regretting the effort or the money you're spending for some sort of certain activity. We want to reflect on the value, and one helpful way to compare these could just be giving them a score out of 10 for how enjoyable. So one of your favorite activities could be a 10 out of 10. The other ones that you're not as much of a fan of, much lower score there. And that could be a numeric way we can sort of reflect about what's happening. Now, of course, you might be thinking, well, I've definitely got some low scores there, but what about the rest of my family? What about, just because it's been a tradition, I would feel guilty if I, stopped doing that. We'll get to that here. After you have some scores or some numbers here, as you reflected about some of your traditions, I want you to then kind of break down the different aspects of cost of these different events. Now, I don't just mean financial cost. There's a lot of different currencies we have in our life. Of course, money is one of those currencies. Different events and situations have higher price points. But we're also talking about time. What is the time involved for this? We've got energy and the effort involved in making something happen. We also have our attention and what we're having to focus on, or even just what we're giving up to be able to make some of these things happen. So after you've reflected about what you are spending, whether that's money, time, energy, attention, stress, whatever you are giving up for these different traditions, let's think about swaps that could be made. What could you do differently that maybe allows you to keep some aspect of the tradition, continuous, while making changes that preserve your financial resources, your time, your energy, your prevent stress, prevent increased stress, any of those different things. And there could be a wide variety. For instance, something that gives a lot of people stress during the holidays comes from gifting. People might be spending more money than is realistically a good idea for them. People might not know what to get another person. There might be feelings of competition, like I need to give the best gift, or I need to top what I did last year, or whatever the case is, and we can make it a really difficult and stressful situation. But maybe you rethink, okay, for gifts, maybe it's too expensive and difficult to buy a gift for everyone. Maybe my family can do more of a gift grab bag, or Secret Santa idea, maybe where you're just getting one or two gifts for people and they're sort of passed around rather than getting something for everyone who is in attendance. Maybe you consider an alternative style gift exchange and you just test it out a year, such as a white elephant gift exchange. Perhaps there's a tradition that feels a little excessive right now, but it's an activity that could be done later on in the year, such as later in the winter, even in January or February, after schedules have opened up a bit. Maybe you're able to ask for more help or mix up a location of where you're hosting an event rather than feeling like all the pressure needs to be on you and you need to set all this up. Sometimes we don't actually check in with ourselves and reflect about if something's too much for us, and we just think we have to do it all ourselves, but that is not the case. We can ask for help if we've got others in our lives, and if people aren't really willing to help, then maybe this activity doesn't even really need to continue happening if no one else is willing to step up for something. Another important layer here to discuss is that it's important not just to cut traditions unless everyone is on board with it. Sometimes people have a lot of personal attachment to these different traditions, even if there's also some negative side effects. But what we can do is provide an alternative or even gradually shift towards that future. Here's an example. I know earlier I mentioned the gifting. Maybe you feel like there are too many gifts being exchanged within your family and it's getting expensive, and maybe you have to just declutter or return a lot of it after. I did that for a few years after marrying into Jake's family, and I hated it. But maybe you consider bringing up the idea of a white elephant gift exchange, which is where you are bringing some of your old items and packaging them up. It's almost like a game where you're picking a gift at random and seeing what you get. It can be a lot of fun. Maybe you suggest throwing that in as a new thing you're trying this year. People can still exchange other gifts if you're not trying to rock the boat too much there, but you're creating a new and fun memory. And guess what? Maybe that will be so popular that it's what they want to do in the future, and thus you can shift your way towards eliminating some of those expensive and wasteful traditions. With any of what we've talked about today, it's important to think about the long game and the big picture of what you want and what sort of direction you're looking to go, especially if you're experiencing any pushback from others. Gradual changes and small tweaks will help people work their way towards that more optimized future of whatever that tradition is. And even sometimes just bringing up some conversation about these things can make a positive difference. I know even with my own family this year, we made some slight tweaks to what we do together. There was a certain restaurant we were going to, for the past several years, I believe, and it's been fun. It's okay. But after a conversation, we realized that while we had fun, we could actually just have a nice meal at home. We had a really nice Thanksgiving time period where we kind of did it potluck style, and it was just very low key. And honestly, everyone kept saying, "This is my favorite Thanksgiving we've ever had," even though it was so low key. And so casually on the phone, I brought it up to my parents. I said, "Hey, we had such a nice Thanksgiving celebration. Maybe we don't need to go to this restaurant. Maybe we can do our own thing and eliminate, that extra half-hour drive to get there and the added costs or stressors of getting that reservation and being in a big crowd, especially if the weather is cold." There's lots of different layers to think about with these. And they were actually really receptive. I wasn't sure what everyone was going to think when I brought it up, but that's just one example of, even for a small thing that's not necessarily a bad tradition, thinking about ways we can make them better through shifting our actions. So while this video felt a little bit all over the place, hopefully you have some different ideas for how you can reflect about the traditions you're currently practicing and how you can navigate that, especially if maybe your ideas are a little bit different than others in your family or whatever group you're talking about or you're thinking about. And I just encourage you to always be intentional, no matter the case, whether you're decluttering or even looking at your schedule and energy and what you're giving that attention to. We can always be making the most intentional choices and making our lives better because of it. I hope you and your families have a lovely holiday season, and feel free to continue watching Abundantly Minimal videos over here or subscribe to the channel right up here. I'll see you next time. Bye.